a lot of different interactions between the split and the joint mechanics.
Hello everybody, thank you for being here today. Now let's speak a little bit about our main character, Tulpa, or I'd rather say our two main characters who are Tulpa and Tamlem. As Martin said, Tulpa is a strong and young hunter, possessed by an old spirit, and is part of a civilization we've created for Ashes of Numrhak. You may eventually recognize some pre-Columbian inspiration, and it's totally on purpose, for it really match with our story. For instance, they have a lot of elements based on duality in their mythology. Here you have just some more readable view of the characters, so you can see, I hope, all the different parts, I mean, Tulpa and Tamlem. By the way, I will be really happy to answer your question if you have some, so don't hesitate. Just one thing we don't really mention until today is basically how do they split. And here is our current solution. So basically, Tamlem uses magic power to create a magic projection of the missing part of the body. So you will have one character with the Tamlem part as a phantomatic and the invert for the other. Of course, this is not the effect that will be in the game. This one is absolutely awful. It's just for the presentation and to help you to visualize how we want to split the character. On the left, you have a reference from Shadow of Mordor, just to have a better reference that can be a better effect. And now I will let Tamara show you some render of the environment.
Hello. So, as Martin talked about, we have 4 environments, and this one is the valley. The gorge is the start of the game, so the player will start learning the mechanics and explore the world. This is another picture of the valley. I have to point out that the faces are placeholders. What we're going to do is make the masks of the 5 shamans and put them in the environment. They're going to be in the same style as Tulpa and Tamlen's mask. And yeah. And the other environment is the barrows and the outpost. Those places are going to be more lore-based, so we're going to see patterns and part of the history that we build up in the walls and in the carvings of the place. And the end of our vertical slice. Thank you.
So I'm going to talk to you about the intention and artistic direction. In the first part concerning the moon, we have to feel different things for sound and music, like the spirituality, the danger, and the mystery for the ambience, as well as the evolution, loneliness, and discovery for our characters. We must feel the duality and symbiosis between many elements, like sound and music, intra and extra-diegetic elements, reality and spirituality, combat and exploration. The goal is to create bridges between all of this by making a complete and evolutive sound entity and system. In this state of mind, we wanted to create a linear music that would incorporate all these ideas of mood intention and game phases to create something coherent. There are 3 different big parts. The first one, the dark and tense introduction with the rise until the fight drop. The second one, the fight, with 3 variations of rhythm and instruments as well as breaks. The third one, the exploration phase, contemplative and melancholic, which will adapt very well to intra-diegetic elements. Concerning the integration of the music, our idea is that the music will be completely integrated into the universe. For that, we work on the one hand with elements of music that blend with the acoustic and atmosphere of the place, and on the other hand, with extra diegetic elements to immerse the player more in a certain global mood. From this point of view, we think the music has extra diegetic and intra-diegetic sources that move or not, like what you see in the picture. We can then later create the staging that we want in the scene. The integration work is mainly done using the tools that Valentin produced. It requires a lot of communication because I tell him my needs in terms of musical integration, and at that time we can discuss about tools that may or may not be relevant. Concerning the progression of the music, we can keep a certain linearity thanks to work by zone, like what you see in the picture. They are represented by triggers and they activate multiple states and sources. In this state of mind, they make evolve the music to have a dynamic one. In the spirit, we can, for example, have a build-up that increase the tension before arriving at the combat music.
Hello. Now that you have a clearer view of the music, let's talk about this main companion, which is the ambience. Because we want to make them part of the same audio entity, the ambience is carrying intents concerning the mood, the dynamic soundscape we want to create, and the musicality we want to bring into it. Concretely, take this form. We have different sounds that are based on the type of environment we are taking inspiration from. It means dry and near desertic places. Then those sounds are dispatched in different roles. For instance, we have a wind that that follow the player from the sides of the valley and comes in and out, depending on how close you are from these walls. Technically, it asked different emitters. I won't go into the technical details, but here is how it looks into Unreal. And we will send you a video extract so you can have a listen to it. And of course, if you have questions, don't hesitate. In this overall soundscape, we've set up a bunch of musical features for each sound, mainly based on offset, repetition, pitches, and sidechaining, so we can control how much musicality each sound have at precise moment. And lastly, an important point for the audio is the combat and the overall actions. For Tulpa, we worked on the call to action and synchronicity mechanics based on sound effects and feedbacks. And so we have both informative and rewarding aspects. Concerning the enemies, as said Nicolas, we try to drive their patterns with the beat of the music, and on top of that, we are also using their actions structure to bring feedbacks on crucial moments, so the player can anticipate as well as feeling the power of the enemies.
Hi. So I will talk just a little bit about the accessibility features that we want to planning to put in our game, and we split this in 3 main axes. The first one is the sound design. The sound design, so obviously we want to make sure all the game is well specialized, and it's a big challenge for the sound designer and me to make sure every information is well understood by the players. Because we have some fighting moments in the game, we want also to make sure every action is associated to a unique sound. And we also want to make all the audio settings really with a lot of parameters for every players. Concerning the controls, we are using the less input as possible, and we realize we can barely play our game with only one hand, so we designed the whole gameplay to be played with only one hand. Concerning the pace of the game, it's a very intense game, and because we want everybody to play our game, we create a system of slow motion that allow one player to input an action, and the game just wait for the other one with a slow motion system. We also want to have a full remapping system for all the inputs of the game. And finally, we're also working on some visual features for accessibility, such as subtitles, colorblind mode, and resizing of the HUD. All the features in yellow are work in progress.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. Let's talk a little bit about the targets. So we are aiming for AAA enthusiasts who like action adventure games and are looking for a new experience. They often enjoy games with mature narrative. And we think we can maybe convince them to buy our game because our game is also an action adventure game with this deep narration. However, we know that we are a co-op game, so maybe we can tend to have this type of targets, and also maybe they didn't find what they wanted in the co-op genre. We know that before the pandemic, there was a trend about social interaction game and couple gaming, and I think that this trend is growing with the pandemic. So our second target can be the social players who likes skillful cooperation and need this type of social interaction. Ashes and Numrhak can be a good opportunity for the couple gaming players. Okay, so about the market, Ashes and Numrhak will be launched on PC, PS5, and Xbox Series. We have a premium game, and we would like to be maybe on the Game Pass because it can give us a lot of opportunities and reach our targets, because they tend to use digital market such as Microsoft Store, Steam, for example. So as you can see on this positioning, Ashes and Numrhak isn't a card game nor puzzle game, and we are in a market which is a little bit blurry. We know that A Way Out, who sold around 3 million copies, is a great competitor for us and breach this market. But we still need to have a strong marketing campaign to reach this type of market and maybe create a new one. About the sales and production costs, so the game will be sold at 28 euros. The copy estimation is around 200 and 400,000 copies. The break-even is around 160 copies. It's a double A game, of course. The production time is around 36 months, and the production cost is around 2,700,000 euros. So, as you can see, this game is not possible if we are a small independent studio. So that's why for this simulation, we would like you to think about us not as a little indie studio, but more a studio who made already few games. So we have thought about few steps to find the funding for this game. So the first step will be a pre-production until August. For this pre-production, we will polish all the mechanics and the core features. Also, we would like to prepare multiple scopes for the project and multiple pitches. So in order to have a better target in the publishing for the publisher. And also we would like to prepare the Gamescom, because we know that the Gamescom in August is a great way to find publishers. The second step should focusing on few publishers. So we targeted EA because EA is the one who published A Way Out, and our game can be interesting for Sony and focus on interactive. And everything is if we have a publisher, we might go for a co-development. For example, Death Stranding worked with Guerrilla Games, and we think that since our game is really difficult to make, we need the manpower and all the knowledge of a great company to help us to finish this game. So thank you for your attention, and if you have questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. And we do have a first question from David. David?
Hi, good presentation. I had a couple of questions that maybe I just missed it in your presentation, but please bear with me. Is it possible for one player to play through, or do you have to have two players for the whole game?
Hi, thanks for the question. We have 2 players for the whole game.
Okay. And I wasn't clear. At one point you talked about rhythmic combat, but I didn't see anything that showed that rhythmic combat. Are you not yet ready to show it, or we just don't have the ability to see it yet?
Yeah, the enemy combat you saw, it is still in work in progress. Here, just a placeholder, so it's not totally implemented yet. So yeah, we will have to. You will have to wait a bit. Again.
Okay. And then my last question was, you talk about deep narration. How are you going to express the deep narration? How does the player get hold of that story?
So for the narration, we want the narration to be driven by the 2 characters. We have 2 characters, so we can make them discuss along the game, and also in the environment.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, David. Laura?
Hi, Laura from Prodigious. I have one question. Maybe I missed it, so maybe I missed it at the beginning, but I just don't really understand how will the game, how will the control will feel for the players? What each player will control? How this thing will work exactly?
Yeah, for the 2 players will have the same ability, so they can both of them can jump, and when one player is jumping, the character immediately jump. But when the 2 players are jumping together, they will just do a higher jump, and that's the same thing for the dash of the attack or the attack. And one player can hold the jump, so the other can respond to this input and make a jump even higher.
Okay, so what happens if one player is jumping and the other one is attacking at the same time?
Yeah, so for this kind, we still have some tests to do, but here we have a split mechanic that can come. So if one is dashing and the other is jumping, we can split them, and so both the player will have the action they desire.
Okay, so if they don't do the same action, they will automatically be split?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Laura. Marion?
Yep. Hello. So programmers coming in with technical questions. You mentioned remote multiplayer. Where are you for now? Where are you with the development of that? Do you have some prototype working on two separate builds?
Okay, so for the multiplayer, since we don't have a lot of time and we are still a student project, we are working with Parsec for all the testing, the playtest. But if we go full on development, we will definitely need network programming for that.
Okay, so not for the demo.
No, in the demo, yeah. We will use Parsec for that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Marion. So next, Xavier.
Hello, thank you for the presentation, very interesting. I'm a bit, I understand that for attack and movement, you can take the average of the input of two players and you have solutions. But I think for some choices, I don't see how you do the average of certain choices. Let's say there is a chest, one character wants to open it, the other doesn't want it to open. What's happening? There's a contradiction. It's not half and half. It cannot be half open. So does it mean that it's the one that presses first that wins, or what's happening there?
For this kind of situation, so we didn't have the example of a chest opening, but if someone wants to do an action, the action has to be shown. So and there is not really bad choice. So the ones that do an action will have the result, but when they do together, it will be just a better result. That's the way we thought about it.
Okay, but I think like sometimes narratively, not doing something and doing something, so it means the average is doing half of the action, but it's still happening. So I cannot prevent something from happening. As a player, if I'm in disagreement with my partner, I have to, I mean, the one that starts action will always win somehow.
It can happen because there is situation where, for example, we need to do a jump, but the jump is really high. So we need to make a synchronous jump. A simple jump won't reach the obstacle.
Yeah, so I understand for those things, but like I'm thinking more in terms of narration and moral choices. Like he wants to kill the enemy, I want to spare him. His half kills him, so he wins.
I don't.
Or maybe just your design should avoid those situations. There's no moral choices.
That's not something we thought a lot about moral choices on this kind, but that's something we need to think about. I think that's something interesting. And especially like for the end game, we want like to we are focusing like really on the early game. The vertical slice is at the middle of the game, but all the gameplay will really focus on the early because we want the core loop to really feel really interesting. But on the end game, those kind of discussion between the player are something that we interest.
Yeah, exactly. But that's why I think you need to have a mechanism to solve that it's not the first one that presses a button that wins somehow. Not for just combat and movement, but for the rest, for the story.
Yeah.
But interesting. Thank you.
Thanks for your feedback.
Thank you, Xavier. I think the next one is for Nicolas.
Yep, I've got a tiny question about the gameplay actually. The thing you've showed on my side, I couldn't see it because it was like a slideshow, so I'm sorry, I maybe missed some things. But so I think I saw a character with a spear, so I'm imagining that there will be some combats or things like that. So you probably want to do something like, I don't know, a beat them all or something like that. And my question is, if you do combats, you're probably going to do combos and animation combos. And if two players are controlling one character, I think it will be like super hard to just fight and do combos and things like that. But maybe it's intended, and if it is, I want to know why.
So for that, the way we handle combat for now is then there is only one attack. They can just do a thrust with the spear, and we are. It's not a beat them all, and the enemy will be really predictive, and so the player, it's more about planning the action so the player can coordinate. So we don't want the player to really mash the buttons. We want them to really think about their action.
And just a comment about the slideshow where, well, we are sorry about that, but Teams is sometimes angry with us. So we will give you all the audio extract and the videos on the team folder so you can watch it. Thank you.
And maybe you can share it also on the Discord, please. Yes, there were some troubles at the beginning, and it was said that they couldn't see correctly and couldn't hear correctly the videos. Thank you, Nicolas. So, Grégoire and Sven, if you have questions.
We don't hear you.
I don't.
Is that
yeah,
better?
it's better.
Yeah. Sorry. I was wondering how much you tested your mechanics since last time, like the shared control and the simultaneous inputs. Have you done test sessions, and what's come out of it?
So we we iterated a lot on what we've done since last time, and we do some internal tests quite often with the game designers, and we tried with external like teachers and things like this, and yeah, we still have trouble with the with the feeling of the fight, because we don't finish already the enemies, and we want the enemies to be we want the combat to be based on enemies. But the cooperation system and the fact that players are playing together, moving together, and planning the game and planning their action quite works at the moment. And we are more focused on the combat. This is the most unstable thing of our production for the moment. But yeah, for the jumping, moving, dashing at the same time with and doing at the same time with the same intention, I think it works at the moment.
Okay, so I'm just curious about how much of your game is combat and how much is actually platformer puzzles.
The way we thought about it is before the player will meet the first combat, we want them to know how to dash, how to jump, and how to attack. So there is the first part of the game will be all about doing some simple puzzle just so player know how to play, and after face an enemy. So, but in the complete game, the focus will be on the combat.
Okay. So your vertical slice is actually puzzle heavy, or how is that going to look?
Yeah, I think we are going to have like the combat will last quite some time, but I mean maybe a 50-50 between puzzles, because we are in the start of the vertical slice and we need a good handboarding.
Okay. Thanks. Just to point out something though, like you noticed for this presentation, as much as the first one, like everyone is raising the same thing, and that is the doubt related to the simultaneous input. And you guys should really read on that and present something that actually alleviate those doubts. Like in that presentation, I was expecting to see something along those lines, to be honest. And right now, I'm honestly still worried. So I guess you got your work cut out for you for the final presentation.
I have a small question about when you say it works, but what does that mean, it works? My point is, because you made some tests, you have some feedback. What are the feedback? Is it fun? Is it tough? Is it difficult to synchronize?
The question,
how did you improve the work on that?
I think the thing is, when we test it, the question was not, is this fun, but does it work? Can we put two players that never played together and ask them to jump, to climb something, and to move toward the same direction? At the very beginning, it wasn't really successful because we haven't anything to ask them to do, and we created the whole level design, and we designed everything to be very straightforward, and basically they have only one thing to do. And we really want challenge not to be on wondering what they are supposed to do, but more on the execution and the synchronization. So in fact, if you were a solo player, it would be just boring and very, very easy. And we are really focusing on asking them easy things, but doing at the same time. And we test it, and people succeed in these tasks. So yeah, when I say it works, people can go through a level design and pass some simple challenges. And in fact, this was our main focus, and we succeed in the synchronization. But yeah, we still have to test with more difficult challenges like fights, like very stressful situation and things like this.
Was it something which was visible in the video?
Sorry?
because we were not able to see the video because of the stutter. Was it something which was visible in the video, the fact that this was played by two people?
Yes, yes,
Do
yes.
we have feedback on inputs or something like this?
Yes, for example, when we have something to climb, you can see if only one player jump, it doesn't work, and he has to hold the button and wait for the other one to input it. So you can see that it can be difficult at the beginning, and we give the tool to the player to make it quite easy at the end.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the questions. I will take two more questions. So for the people who didn't talk already. So first, Ludovic.
Hey, thanks for the presentation. Can you clarify, this is something that I didn't get quite well, because you are focusing on collaboration and symmetry, but since you have this splitting mechanic, is it something that is a punishment, or can players actually use it as a tool in puzzle, platformer puzzles, or during fights?
We want the split is not a punishment. It just it can be just a result, and we want the player like to handle different situation and use symbiosis and split in conjunction. Sometimes there is a situation that asks them, oh, you need to split to like open the door, and sometimes it will be the reverse. They need to be in symbiosis. So the two mechanics, we want them to really work together. Sometimes we need to split to rejoin after. So yeah, there is no punishment in being split. Also, it can be used as a way to communicate. If two players can't communicate between each other, like with the voice, they can split and like show a path where they want to go, and so it's also a tool for the players.
Thank you. Julie Cal, do you want to ask the question? I've seen you disappear. Do you have a question still?
Oh, yeah, it was about the synchronization of the players. I was thinking about, is it a rhythm game, or do the player will have to learn the pattern of animation so they could synchronize their movements, but all the pattern of animation?
So, so you say about rhythm. So the rhythm is just a tool for the players to really help them see when there is a window of opportunity, basically. But I don't know if I understand correctly the question.
I'm wondering if there will be because you said that the player will have to do simple action. They won't have a full trees of possibility, but just like one or two action to choose. And I was wondering if there will be a window in time, but a very clear window with very clear feedback of what to do and how to do it.
Yes. We have still some work to do on the signs and the feedbacks, but yeah, we want it to be as clear as possible. As Jeremy said, the difficulty in the game won't be to know what to do. It's more on the communication between the player and how they do it after.
Do you have examples?
For basic examples that you can see in the video, there is a door that is closed. There is two buttons that need to be on it, and so they have to split, go on the button, and then join inside after the door is open. So this is basic puzzles, and we want the same mechanics to be used inside the combat after.
Okay.
Thank you, Julie-Kael. Laura, you have a remaining raised hand. Is it from your first questions? Yes, it was. Nicolas was the same? Okay.
No, I had like just one thing I wanted to say
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to be quick. I think it's not formally a very bad idea to have like two people controlling one character. But I think you should pay a great attention to the senior feedback, like everyone said, and maybe you can tweak these things by like giving some abilities to one player and other abilities to another, like one player can dash and another can parry. Like they can do the same things, but they will be useful at some point in the game, you know? So the player one will dash at one moment, the other will parry another, and things like that. Maybe you should think about that, or I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. That's something we thought about. But there is something that we found interesting is in the behavior of the player is when they play together, there is some kind of there is a lead and a support, and the two roles are constantly changing. Like someone is deciding where they go, and the other is following the other player. And sometimes it changes. And so this kind of organicity is something that we are interested in. So having both players do the same action can have like interesting effect on how the two players organize themselves.
Okay.
Thank you. I guess that everybody had the chance to ask their questions. Thanks again for this exchange, and let's congratulate again the team for the presentation and the exchange.
Thanks.
As said, they will share their videos so you can see that better on either on Teams or through Discord. Thank you. And let's welcome the next team, the Brittle ones. We'll need a few minutes to settle. We do have some technical problems with one of the screens, so we're just fixing that.
All right, do you see our screen?
Yep, we can see it.
You don't have the sound. Yeah, that's problematic. Just a minute, we'll start over then. We'll start all over. Okay, sorry for the technical issues. Hello everyone, welcome to our latest update about the Brittle ones. Our game is what we call a dodge them all, a rare genre where you don't actually hurt your opponent directly. Instead, you let them destroy themselves from their own violence. You see, the Brittle ones takes place in a very fragile world, mostly made of porcelain. Attacking breaks everything into pieces, including the attacker himself. You will have to find a new way to beat your enemies if you don't want to get broken. We target players interested in being faced with challenges and those who enjoy making discoveries. Since it doesn't contain any realistic violence, it is accessible to everyone older than 7 years old. We planned for it to be a 5 to 7 hour experience that could sell for €25. The game takes place in this porcelain world that used to be a very peaceful place. Its Brittle inhabitants shunned violence of any type and devoted their entire life on making art. All they needed to work was a few ceramic fragments and some gold they took from the golden rivers. But recently, the golden flows strangely got sparser. This drought caused some porcelain creatures to turn aggressive and violent. It is your duty to understand what caused all of this. Oops, sorry about this.
So we just wanted to give you a quick look about our universe to imagine what our game designers are going to talk about. So our environment takes place as it's so fragile is one of the aspects we want to express through the design of our cities. So they are really tall, gigantic, and at the same time, really fragile. Everything is holding on pillars. And since our environment is made out of porcelain as well as glass, the player will be able to see through like the walls. So we want them to give them like a beautiful view outside. So about the atmosphere we're adding, overall we're leaning towards a heavy atmosphere with dull colors like a gray and a dark sky to make the environment stand out. And our environment is actually going to be affected by what is gonna happen in the story by referring to the violence and instability of the world by like the gray atmosphere. Okay. So concerning our environment, we wanted to go further than our everyday concept of porcelain and play around with different shapes and structures and patterns like could be recognized in contemporary porcelain creation with the desire to go for more geometrical and abstract visuals in order to create unique environment with respecting to our usage of black and white porcelain with glass as fragile materials and also for gold materials added to them to increase its beauty and add simplicity. To talk more about our inhabitants of this world, which are going to be like the enemies of the player, we tried to have a heavy, cold, and rigid look behavior and movement as well, which would be very close to the moving porcelain idea that we could have. They are thick layered and their shapes are exaggerated depending on the type of the action. They can take with some shape edges at some places to emphasize this violence behavior of there. And being like heavy and a bit more clanky, their action will be predictable for the player. So to talk more about our player, which our main character, this is we lose this coldness and rigid that we speak about earlier in our main player, to aspect to switch to something extremely like swift and agile, and it looks as if he is made out of different kind of porcelain, like more watery, thin layered, and like weightless, but still like easily breakable. Also, we have like round and dynamic looks, and this will allow him to have a very fluid and responsive movement, like a dancer, for the sake of the game feel, especially when most of our movements are dodging. So.
So first, you will listen some videos. Okay, we lost this screen, so for playing the video it's a little bit complex. But okay, yeah, no, never mind for the, yeah, okay, let's go. Okay, never mind. Maybe I will do that. Wait. Okay, silence. So I made different footsteps according to the animation made by Youssef that you see on the video. We passed the link after the presentation, don't worry. So I make big and heavy footstep for the big hands enemy, because he is really heavy and work like really heavy working. And the big leg enemy, she have really little feet, like just like little blade. So I make really sharp sound. And with Pierre-Henri, we work on a procedural sound for the breaking parts of our characters. So now each little piece exploding in our scene makes sound. And also our player needs feedbacks, and for that I make different sound for our enemy when they see us and when they attack us, so our player can understand that he is in danger. And yeah, can you try to play this, please? Yeah. As you can hear here, I put some reverberation in our room. Now when we can feel this big and empty room, you can also hear the golden fountain in the middle of the scene and the wind from outside. And our environment is deserted, so not so much noise to trouble our life. We also ask outside composer, mainly in our school, for helping me in the music. Here you can hear Enzo's music. It's a M1 sound designer.
Thank you. So now let's review the 3C. The character can dodge in any direction around him. Here's how it works. When the dodge button is pressed, the character goes into a startup phase, during which he can select a direction. The direction is indicated by the tilting of the character upper bodies. When the button is released, the character goes into an active phase and starts dodging in the given direction. And finally, during the third recovery phase, the character softly slides on the ground until he's back to immobility. Along its overall progression, the player will learn several other ways of dodging, from more stiff ones like the one you just saw, to more acrobatic ones as you get more experience. But the control stays the same for every of them, with the possibility to select a direction before dodging. There is also a button to punch. It is a desperate move that has to be used with caution, and it exists only as a way maybe to test the player's patience, but it shouldn't be used if you play well. During the combat gameplay, the player must make a creative use of the environment and of the enemy relative position to destroy them without being destroyed himself. The combat phase is meant to provide tight gameplay. Timing is key to master the game. The player needs to stay aware of the force of every forces on the arena and anticipate the state of the battle on the next moment. Our second focus point of the combat is the pacing of the combat, sorry. We want the danger to be steady, with very few places to hide for the player in the arena. And in addition to these basic mechanics, there are optional ones we would like to have in the vertical slice, like having the destruction of the environment, make the battlefield evolve, and have the player adapt to this change. And we would also like to have a chain reaction of nullbacks. That's when an enemy that has been eaten by something would have a pushback and collide on other ones, making a lot of damage in just a few moves. So here are some of our enemies' attacks, close range attacks and long range attacks for both of the two enemies we have now.
Our camera will help a lot with these animations. It is set in proximity to the player to make it feel like you're really involved in the melee. And it will always try to turn toward the closest obstacles to help you in the gameplay. It adapts dynamically, and also with the enemies to try to turn toward imminent threats, so you're never taken by surprise. And we'll try also to have the camera to be more distant inclined when there are more enemies around, so it adapts perfectly to combat. So, to make sure the player doesn't stay in only one part of the arena, some elements of the level design will need to be breakable, with the player progressively turning the arena into ruins. The unbreakable assets will need to be disposed in flower-like oval shapes to lead the player to be cornered if he goes there near them. We don't want the player to stay in the borders. We want him to go to the middle, to the breaking central, to the central part of the arena, where he has more chances to dodge. Also, we'll still have to adapt depending on the needs of the artistic team. Obviously, they can't make any shape we want, and we need something realistic. About where we would position our vertical slice. First, we really want to showcase the combat phase before any other aspect, but we might end on a short narrative or exploration phase. We want it to be set in a late state of the game to give the player wider scope of the gameplay, with enemies, patterns, and environment variety. It takes place in the part of the game where gold is still abundant and everything is very elevated. While the game is meant to have a tight gameplay, where frustration is a strong drive, the vertical slice will be made easier to give a better idea of the experience. That will be achieved through slower enemies and even more telegraphed attacks. So here's a small GIF to explain you the gameplay. You enter a room, there are enemies who detect you, so they will call for enemies around them, and they will come all in the same group. So you will notice some enemies are actually faster and will reach the player first. So here we'll see one of the long leg enemy will attack as a first and go into a direction. The player has a small time to react, dodge, and spam. The enemy crashes into the pillar. So, but by moving, the character is actually exposed to more enemies who will also rush. Some enemies might attack at the same time and collide into each other, which will help with a lot of enemies. So more.
Now, about some of the technical issues we've met up to this point during the development. First, for the breaking of the characters, of every characters of the game, it turned out there were many third-party software for static mesh slicing, but we found no one for real-time animated meshes. And what we wanted was to split the characters in his last posture before he's been destroyed. And for this, the solution was to create a procedural mesh out of it in real time, and then apply a series of slicing on this newly created mesh. And then every broken piece is set with its own physics. The second technical issue we had, which is not as hard as the first one, it was a request from the graphic teams. In fact, they needed a tool to reproduce a feature in Maya that allowing them to draw directly on the Unreal scene with 3D meshes. We thought it was important considering the artistic flavor we wanted for our game world. And now I will let Remy talk about accessibility.
Yes. So first, we have already some features that can be considered already as accessibility as an accessibility experience, like the automatic camera. The player doesn't have to use the second stick, and secondly, we have audio feedback for the enemy's attack anticipation. But we discussed some options adapting this original experience, activable in an accessibility menu, like some camera settings, some controller mapping, some UI resizing, and we also thought about a visual filter for characters that change the shader of the characters for better reading of action, and to invisibility mode, but where there is always the challenge to defeat the enemies with the environment. So all of this will be in the vertical slice, but we can imagine some other accessibility option for the full production, like an automatic dodging, where the challenge is only the timing and not a combination of inputs or directions. Some other visual filters for other elements like interactions elements or environments. And finally, we have some game designer here that seem really interested by dynamic difficulty. Thank you.
So now I will speak about the target motivations. So we used a Contig Foundry study of 2020 to assess our target motivation. And here we can see that the target is mainly interested by mastering challenging mechanics and a fast-paced, juicy gameplay with an ability for destruction and mayhem. With this motivation, we got two personas. So the main target persona is named the Acrobat, and he's a solo gamer that mostly likes discovering and mastering original mechanics. The games that this persona tend to play tend to be indie games that give more focus on mechanics and the difficulty of the game, the challenge. For the secondary target, he's called it the bounty hunter. He's a solo gamer too, but he's more interested in exploring the game world where he can have a destructive influence. He's less interested by hard difficulty and mechanics mastery. And the games that interest him tend to be more AAA games with nice graphics and a huge world to explore, like Assassin's Creed, God of War, or Ghost of Tsushima. And as you may have noticed, there is some games that can interest our two personas, like Hades or Dark Souls. But because our game is more of a linear narrative action game, it resembles more games like Dark Souls or Nier Automata, for example. So for the communication strategy, for the branding, we think that it is better to axe the communication and the action and the combat part of the game, as we know that there is much more action games that are sold than adventure games or narrative games. And we think too that during the production, it is better for us to find an external publisher because they are more experienced in launching action-oriented games. And that it is better for us also to think about launching the game in a AAA slam date to be sure to have more visibility, because the bigger studio have a bigger communication budget. So about the production plan, we saw that studios making similar games tend to have 20 to 30 employees, and we did a first prediction with our game, and we think that we may need up to 20 to 25 people to make it, and we think that we have to hire mostly designers and programmers, because the games focus more on the gameplay, game mechanics, AI behavior, and the different levels and arena you will have to progress through. Also, for the plan, similar production tend to take 2 to 3 years with this employees number, and we think that we need a long pre-production phase with only the core team to define the core experience before doing the full experience during a period of 1.5 years nearly. So it's the production phase with the full staff. We also think about doing a closed beta before launching to have feedbacks from the players. About the production costs, after taking into account all the personal costs, the overhead costs, like the hardware, the materials, the software used, and the external costs, so the freelancers, the score composer in freelance, etc., we predict a total production cost of nearly 2.1 million euros, and to have more insurance, we added a risk coverage of 20%. So maybe 2.5 million euros to make this project, and because our sales price is around 25 euros, we may need near 300k units sold to break even, taking into account the publisher's fee. And that's it. Thank you for listening to us.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. Who has the first questions? David?
Hi, another good presentation. The environment, you talk about destructibility, but also having a clear definition between destructible and non-destructible environment. Can you explain better what you mean? Are you going to only have the exterior portion non-destructible, everything else destructible, or a mix within it?
No, we actually have according to the material. So the fragile materials are not going to be breakable, like the glass or the porcelain around the whole environment. We made like walls and even like props out of it. But the thing that contains gold, which the unbreakable material that we have in our scene, is going to be like in two forms, like liquid form in a fountain that he gains his health from, and the other form is going to be in the environment, which is unbreakable. So I guess that's what we mean with that.
Okay, thank you. And I just wanted one comment. It's not a question. Whoever did the programming on the real-time slicing of the character, that's awesome.
Thank you so much. That's Pierre.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Next questions to Grégoire and Sven.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. Big up for all the videos and gifs of gameplay. Loved it. My question was, I noticed the punch input and you briefly explained it. I'm not sure I understood what it's for. Can you expand on that?
Sorry, can you repeat your question? I didn't hear it.
The punch inputs, yeah, like David does. What's it used for in a dodge them all game?
In fact, at first it was intended as a metaphoric input, or only used for to test the player resistance to hunger, Like if nothing is going the way he imagined, and he just have a move of rage and start punching the enemies, and then lose its own life. But we think we could also use in a more gameplay-ish way to get out of like difficult situation where you are where enemies are in circle, and you have to make a sacrifice to get out of it.
So it's an attack move that drains your health, basically. Is that it?
Yeah, that's basically what it is. Because in this game, you will face a lot of situations where you could be cornered very easily, and when it happens, it means you fail somewhere, and you have to use that desperation move if you don't want to get broken even more.
Can't you dodge out of being cornered though?
Well, if the enemies have kind of an interception range, so if you get too close to them, they will try to attack you. So this is very dangerous to try.
Okay. Well, thanks. I'm anxious to actually play the game.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next questions to Ludovic. We can't hear you, Ludovic. Sorry, maybe your mic is off.
It's okay. Yeah, I have some issues with my mic. Sorry about that. Thank you for the presentation. I really love the art direction, and it's quite consistent with the gameplay, so it's nice. I have a similar comment. It's about like the punch feature, because with the Dodgemo, I like the fact that you took the trade-off of it's not a fight game, you're just judging, it's a challenge, and then adding the punch feature is kind of taking a step back in that direction. So my question was more about, is it a playtest-driven decision? Did you add the feedback from players that some kind of similar feature was needed?
Not yet. We just have this option as a safe point if we find out that this is a problem, but we need to try it out more to know if it's really necessary.
All right. Well, on my personal opinion, it's a bit too bad to have it added to a game that is already interesting with the dodge mechanic.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
you'll see. And also, yeah, the second question is that about the acrobatic dodge. Is there like a risk-reward system around it, or is it just like a more like a small reward of using it? Like, do you have like mechanism around that? Because you mentioned advanced player.
Well, it's both a reward, a visual reward, or action reward, whatever you call it, because of the spectacular nature of it, and also it's a gameplay reward because you can pass over enemies you couldn't that would have otherwise be an obstacle if you stuck to the simple dodge. So that's had a dimension into the gameplay, a vertical dimension.
Okay, so there is no. Oh, sorry.
One of the risks is also to consider that you mustn't crash into walls or into other obstacles, and that's something that could happen if you just spam dodges without caring really much.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Xavier, if you want to go with your question.
Yes, thank you. Great presentation. A lot of strong ideas, I think. But I didn't get a real sense of progression. I think like for one slice of game, it's very clear, but like what happens before, what happens after, is there level up somehow? Like the character gets stronger, even though he keeps on dodging, so he dodges better. Is there some sense of improvement and skill? That's one thing. And then maybe can you say some elements about the story? In the sense that here I feel okay, you want to survive, but then why do you keep moving on? What's pushing you? What's driving you?
In fact, as you go, you will get from a stiff character to a more agile and acrobatic character as he will develop his flexibility and new moves. What drives the player towards the unveiling of of the narration is that there's a mystery to unveil about why the world has turned so violent, and that's the idea he wants to find out.
Also, I want to say that the more you progress, the more you will be faced with different enemies that will force the player to learn new patterns. And the knowledge of these patterns makes a lot for the progress of the player, that will know, this one I must dodge him in a certain way, and this one requires certain types of action. And those characters could also be used to tell some stories. As you, for instance, the more you progress, the more you see they use gold for them, the more they transform, and they're less and less porcelain. And there is this possibility of
okay, so you have levels or skill trees, or there's like you say, you get more and more agile, so you actually improve something about your dodge along the way?
Yeah, you could improve some dodges and find dodges and learn to dodge in new ways potentially, like different types of jumps or different types of crawling and dodging at the same time. Those kind of things we will not explore during the vertical slice, but
no, of course. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next, Frédéric.
Superb presentation. Saw a lot of work on the animation of the destruction and a lot of different things, so it was very cool to see. I have one question about the controls. So you say that the dodge is put on 2 buttons, A and B, and direction is on the left stick. Have you tried putting the dodge on the right stick, as it's based a lot on movement? Maybe you could have a little flick on some specific direction. Maybe just something you already tested and wasn't efficient enough. I don't know. I just wanted to know if you already thought about that.
That's definitely an idea we had during the pre-production and during the brainstorming process. But we went for the type of control you saw during the presentation, because it's for sake of accessibility. In fact, I think, because you have one joystick that either move the characters when he's moving or walking around, and when you press the dodge button, it changes the input to take the direction of the dodge. And we think it would be easier to have not to have two thumb on busy on the controller. But in fact, that's if we had time to test it, we will definitely test it, because that's an idea, in fact.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Frédéric. Do you have still questions? Some other people wants to ask questions or make some comments. Everybody wants to try the game. So yes, David.
Yeah. So I had one small question, which was in one of your slides, you talk about where your game compares to other games, and you have an axis which is labeled juicier. What does that mean?
The juiciness axis means the reward you give to the player when he defeats his opponent. So games like, for example, Hades or God of War have there is like crazy cinematics, crazy screen shakes, many effects that give you a reward for fighting back and for killing your opponents. So the objective here about the juiciness of the game is to tell that the game wants the player to feel that if he escapes the attacks of its enemies, or if he makes them like break into a wall or between each other. You will have many mesh slices, maybe part of the environment that have to be destroyed, and this can be rewarding for the player, as it will give a chaotic mayhem feeling, I think.
So that's really rich, but they don't get any. There's no power reward. There's no payoff other than just delightful audio and visuals, right?
The payoffs are not in the skill you use, like in the other games that are more combat focused than dodges focused. But during the game, you will have like better dodges, like the game design team told you, and there is also a point where you can regenerate your life. So it's not really linked to what I will call juiciness, but yeah. So I hope I answered.
I understand. Yep.
Thank you. Is there other comment or question remaining? If no, I will suggest to congratulate once again the team. Thank you for the presentation. Thanks for the exchange.
Thank you.
And as we are a bit ahead of time, so we will take the minutes remaining just to fix the screen, I think, who was killed during the presentation. So we're gonna fix the technical problems we have here. And so we will have a break as well, take coffee or drink. The time the next team settles, maybe we can have, I'm just checking with the team, yeah, we're gonna take few minutes to try to fix the screen. So let's say we start as planned at 15:40. Thanks. So we used the break to fix the technical problems we had here. So now we are ready to go again. So I hope you're all back. And now it's the time for the last project of this afternoon, the Eldritch Funk. Problems for the sound, we're gonna start again with the sound. Yeah, we stopped the mic in order to fix the sound. It's another issue, but it will be fixed soon. Sorry for that.
This vinyl! Ah, I love this band. So fucking weird. Picture it. It was the 70s. They made a few hits. They were produced by a big name, living in his big-ass house. But one day, they all vanished. Just like this. Gone. No one ever figured out what happened.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Eldritch Funk presentation. The Eldritch Funk is a first-person mystery exploration game set in the 1970s that will be released on PC and consoles. Our game is built upon 3 pillars that we will get to know in the course of our presentation one by one. Exploration, mystery solving, and an alternate 1970s era. So you play as a journalist who came to interview a famous funk producer in his estate about recent odd events that were rumored to take place there. When the journalist arrives, however, no one is there to greet them. So they enter the estate and suddenly they are locked in without anyone in sight. At first, their objective will be to find a way out, but as they advance deeper in the house, the journalist will progressively be confronted to supernatural events and encounters and understand that some things should never be meddled with. Explore the producer's estate and learn more about the characters living in it. Our story is mostly character-driven. Most of them were present until very recently, and their presence is still lingering around the estate through tapes, notes, personal effects left behind. The player will get to know them even though they're not here anymore, and maybe bring what happened to them to light. So we've got 3 artists, Lottie, Clive, and Dina, as well as the producer's son, Lance. All of them gravitate around the producer. Let's start with Clive. He's the drummer of the band, and he's a bit obsessed with the producer. He is the founder of the band, and he's the keeper of its soul. That's what he pictures himself as. But he has got a very strong temper, and this temper often gets in the way of reason. Fortunately, he is toned down by Lottie, the rhythm guitarist of the group. Lottie, she's very quick-witted, and she's the first one to be onto the producer's shenanigans and to begin investigating him. That will definitely not end well for Lottie. Moving on to Dina. Dina, she's the new recruit of the group, and she brings a touch of lightheartedness to the estate. She dreams of success, but she's a bit too naive for her own sake, and that will not end well for her either. Poor Dina. She found an unexpected ally in Lance. He's the producer's son, and he simply despises his father for toying around with his artists. He's gotten sick of the music world, but that's about to change when he gets mixed up with a bizarre organ hidden in the estate, a pipe organ. As you can guess, through investigation, you'll learn that things between them are very complicated. For now, let's lend an ear to an audiolog found in the estate that might give you a better grasp on some of them. We'd like to give you a sneak peek at an example tape depicting a scene between Dina and the producer. It's one of the producer's daily logs, which is suddenly interrupted by weird sounds in the night and Dina sleepwalking.
So today is Monday. I've neglected my artists a bit today. I've been down there to see it. And tomorrow I'll be managing Clive a little. He's been unfocused lately. I can hear it in his playing.
No audio.
Why? That sound. It can't be. Who's there?
We don't know why. I don't know if you can hear me. We don't know why the sound is not working, so we're checking.
We can hear you, but not the sound.
Thanks. We start again.
So today is Monday. I've neglected my artists a bit today. I've been down there to see it. And tomorrow I'll be managing Clive a little. He's been unfocused lately. I can hear it in his playing. Why? That sound. It can't be. Who's there? Dina, is that you?
Where am I? How did I get here?
You're just outside my bedroom. You must have been sleepwalking.
Okay, so here was, sorry for the technical problems. This was a sneak peek at what you might find when you're walking around the estate. You will find many more of these, and some of them will be at first a bit confusing, but as you piece out the audio logs between them and many more clues, you will get to understand a bit more about what it's about, but we will get back to it a bit later. So there will be many more of those in the Eldritch Funk, and that will be the main way of conveying the character's personality, even though they are not here anymore. I'm going to let Alexandre get more into the second pillar of our game, mystery.
Thank you. So, our second game pillar is mystery. Solving mystery is the main thing you will do in the Eldritch Funk, so let's try to solve one together in the game. We're going to walk through a test zone of the game that we created in order to playtest the mechanics, the story, and the mysteries. We have sphere placeholders that replicate what the player will find in the final version of the slide. So we're getting inside the bedroom zone. So every mystery starts with clues scattered all around the house. In the short video you saw, those clues were placeholder spheres. In the final game, there will be audio logs, texts, but also more subtle elements like the music or the layout of the estate itself. Those clues allow the player piece together with their intuition and luck to crack a knowledge key. Once they've obtained the knowledge key, the player can go through multiple locks all around the house. Let's make that more concrete with this example. In this example of mystery, we can deduce, thanks to the clues scattered all around the house, that there is something strange about the eyed wallpaper in one of the rooms. In the example, the clues are an audio log, a note, and a picture of the wallpaper. Pieced together, they form a knowledge key. This knowledge key is the understanding that this paper allows you to pass through the wall it is on if you walk backwards. So let's see how it looks like. So I can see this wallpaper. If I go backwards, I can walk through it. Okay, it's fine. If I go forward, I can't. And backwards, I can. So, to solve those kind of mystery, you will need tools. The journalist's tools helps you find clues and see things from another perspective. The Polaroid helps you take pictures and see things you could not see otherwise. The notebook allows the player to know what has been going on so far in the inquiry. Notes are not taken directly by them. The notebook will be an info cognitive dump for the player. The recorder helps record, modify sounds, as well as listening to audio logs scattered all around the house. Let's see the camera in action. You'll be able, for example, to look at the pictures you've taken and learn more about them. But now let's talk about the estate. We created the game space thanks to those mysteries. And to do so, we created an agile-friendly graph system to build the game space. If you need more information on this, you can ask us questions during the Q&A. To support this mysterious atmosphere, we have, of course, the music, especially a strange and conceptual extra-diegetic music that will give us clues about the mystery and that will set up the mood. Concerning our inspiration and our positioning, we are a house exploration game. So, of course, our mind goes to Edith Finch, Gone Home, or Tacoma. But we're not only linear narration. We have a game that asks the player to do a lot of reasoning. So we're also close to games such as Obra Dinn or Art of Wilds. So we're a bit in the middle. You can see us there. So now let's talk about our third game pillar, which is the 1970s.
So we were able to see the mood board, which show our inspiration for the 70s design. So we have a lot of colorful things that inspire us. As we won't see any character in our slice, we won't meet anyone. We chose to prioritize the environment and the materials. The 70s design are really colorful and have like distinctive shapes and recognizable patterns. So we have those different patterns and fabric, velvet, leather, carpet textures, all made in Substance Designer. And each material will have different color variations to fit each area. So there will be different wallpaper, different floors, for example. So each zone of the estate will have its own color palette and specific shapes. For example, the living room will be more in orange tones, whereas the bedroom zone will have rounded shapes and purple tones. For the music studio, it will have an hexagonal shape and some brown and warm tones. So we can see here the more like purple and rounded zone for the bedroom.
What characterizes most our game, we think, is the opposition between rational and supernatural. We have a very strong contrast between what we usually expect from the colorful 1970s, which serves as a great context in Surface because it's usually associated with liberation, self-expression, colors, but our game actually, under this context, conceals disturbing events. So the player will be led to reconstitute the timeline of events right before the journalist arrived at the estate. When the journalist arrives, everything is already has already happened. But what exactly is this everything? So it will be how the producer came to be in contact with the entity, how the artists spend very troubled days between them, realizing that you can go through wallpapers, that there is a cosmic pipe organ playing at night, that some statues change shape, that some corridors have no end. It truly will bring the worst in them. Then the player will discover that the artists fell one after the other, sacrificed to an entity that lives there, and that there isn't really any escape from the house, and that the producer is not their friend, because that producer himself lost his mind in pursuit of a perfect harmony, a supreme song he called the Eldritch Funk. The journalist arrives really after all that, so there is this uncanny feeling of knowing by advance that these people are not here anymore, but were right there just some time ago. And you feel they are still here somehow with you along this adventure. They are giving out clues about how to navigate this house of madness through their tapes, their notes, their diaries, or even how their bedrooms are organized. But they're really not here, and they're gone after having suffered too much. I'm going to let the talk to Laurent.
Thanks. Like you can see, it's a few inspiration examples. We have many movies would take place in the 70s. We have music mostly from the 70s and other things more recent, like the work of Tom Yorks on Suspiria remake. And also a few games will inspire us in many aspects, like gameplay, game sound treatment, or art direction. We have already made all the sound for the tools, so we can few examples. Yes? Or the vinyl sound, for example, vinyl reader. You can change music. So the next step is to start integrating the ambiances soundscape, which are in fact extragenetic music of each room, and see how they match in game. So the extragenetic part, as I said, we want these soundscapes to evolve with tension, and every room will have its own audio atmosphere signatures. And for the diegetic music, we use classic funk. We make classic funk music to emerge players in the 70s, and we have already 3 musics at this time. and we have also different audio extract if you want to listen more. I give the floor to Julian to will talk about the target.
Thank you. So, who are our players? Our target is mostly composed of adults. We're aiming on the 25 to 35 years old player, but we also aim for older players like people who knew the 70s. To reach this target, we'll try to build awareness about the project during the development. We'll use Reddit, Twitter, and Instagram in order to reach Outer Wilds or Lovecraft lovers. The game will cost around €25 on release and will be available on every platform, and we would like to be available in the Game Pass as soon as it will be possible. We defined 3 difficulty targets, and those targets are important because we'll try to adapt our communication for these special targets. So Laura Lucy is part of the art of our main target. We'll have to surprise and challenge her, as well as we have to reward her with optional content. Mael belong to our main target. We'll have to surprise them and to keep them in the story with audio logs, game space, etc. And Mehdi belongs to our extended target. We'll have to offer him a fulfilling story without frustrating him. As he has no time, we'll work on the golden path for him. Now let's get a look into the financial part. The project should cost around €946,000. According to our competitors' sales, we hope to sell 300,000 copies of the game. It's a low estimation scenario. The break-even point would be reached before 85,000 copies sold. And to precise a bit the marketing costs, here you can see an example of things we would like to introduce in the plan, like social media ads, live action trailer, or influencers. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you. Thanks, and sorry for all the technical problems that were due to the students. So, do you have first questions? Yes, Grégoire and Sven. We can't hear you. You're on mute.
And again, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I'll go straight to my question. The last time we talked about how hard it can be in a enigma-based game to actually collect clues and make sense of them once you start getting like a pile of different clues and stuff. So I guess this is where the notebook comes into play, and I'm curious as to how it actually works systemically. Like, what's the mechanic? What am I going to interact with as the player to kind of keep track of all the mysteries I'm unveiling?
Thank you for your question. Yes, that's exactly what the notebook is here for. The notebook will be updated automatically along the way when the player finds clues. So the player doesn't interact themselves with the notebook. They won't be writing in it. It's all really automated. And the particularity of the notebook is that since the clues could be found theoretically in any order for the same mystery, the page about the mystery will be divided in several zones that will be appearing little by little along the way. I don't know if Alexandre wants to add. Okay. I don't know if I answered your question or not really.
Yeah. I'm curious how it's going to look and how it's going to work. Is there any kind of like mock-up work or prototype of this?
We don't have a prototype to show you, but we aim to have something that really sells the fantasy of the detective. So we have a bunch of references, and yes, it's going to be a notebook, but we're also very inspired by the bullet journal form, to have a very, really to have this role of cognitive help for the player. So yeah, it's going to be like a detective will take his notes, and it's also a way for us to introduce all the mysteries, because the journalist comes to the house with an interview he has a plan to interview the producer that lives there. So the page of the notebook will be, there are already some questions prepared in the notebook of the journalist that will help us make the player go in certain direction.
Okay. And how does the camera factor into all this? Like, why am I taking pictures of stuff?
So you can take pictures of the game space, and when there's an interest point, I don't know if you heard if you remember in the sound, we played the sound of the camera. There are two different. There was a sound that was louder than the other and more eldritch. This sound is the sound that will play when you take an interest point in the picture. And when you take an interest point in the picture, an eldritch point, you can read a description of the picture you've just taken, and this description will probably lead you into somewhere else.
So cause an entry in the notebook, I guess.
Yes, it's also linked with the notebook.
Yeah, and I just want to add that the photos, that's the use of the photos itself, but the camera also has another use in that it uses flash, and to solve certain puzzles, you will need this flash. Yeah, that's basically it.
Okay, and is all of this going to be used in the vertical slice?
Yes.
Okay, so camera, notebook, and I guess the blinking of both eyes?
Yes.
Okay. Well, can't wait to see it then.
Thank you. Next question to Nicolas.
Yes, actually I've got two questions. First of all, that was a very cool presentation, and the PowerPoint was really great as well, actually. So my first question is, it seems to have a lot of written notes in your game, and that's not bad. That's all right. But I think you have to be careful with that, because if you put too much written things in your games, well, the player will get tired of reading it. And you used an example, which is Obra Dinn, and Obra Dinn doesn't use any notes. Obra Dinn will only use static scenes to display the narration and the clues. So did you thought about things like that to display the narration and clues?
We have different way of displaying the narration. We have environmental storytelling, but text is very important in our game. But we kept in mind that some players in our target will not read everything. So basically, we have a difficulty curve that adapts to players that don't want to spend too much time reading. So the golden pass of the game is available for most players. Almost everyone will be able to solve it through audio logs. Audio logs is basically our main way to convey what will not be read, and there are also phantom recordings. You will have to find the way to listen to them by solving a mystery, but there will be more eldritch way of listening what happened in the estates and what happened at traumatic moments for the artists and the producers.
Okay, cool. It's cool that you thought of every players. The other question was, there is a thing with that kind of games, is that often players can feel lost. And for some of games like Obra Dinn or The Witness, it's on purpose, and that's all right, because the games have like their particular audience, and that's all right. But do you want this to be on purpose in your game, or do you plan to add systems that will detect when players are stuck and trigger mechanics or feedback to help them, or don't?
To be lost in the mysteries, we have our game is very horizontal, so you can solve a lot of mystery at the same time. The notebook helps you keep track and not being lost with the number of mysteries. So the number of mysteries actually, then if you're not lost, because thanks to notebook, it helps you. You're stuck on this mystery, you don't get what to do in this room, fine, it's probably because you don't have all the clues. You can explore another part of the house, and once you learn that you can go through the wallpapers, a certain wallpaper, you will remember all the wallpaper you saw in this very wallpaper you saw all around the house, and be able to go through new room there, and learn new clues about other mysteries. So the horizontality of the mystery system, coupled with the notebook, actually helps us, I think, not actually avoiding this player is lost and doesn't know how to do, because it won't be linear. And there's also, in level design, we have a lot of options to avoid this problem. For example, a room, we put two different locks to access it. Maybe you can go through it through the wallpaper, or maybe you can use another way. And then you get into the room and you get the clues inside of the room. And in the level design itself, we based the zones around hubs, so that you always go back to familiar places, and we use landmark. In the slice, you will have a gigantic metronome, and you will have a huge atrium that you will just remember because it's wow moments and it's hub places.
Okay, cool. Thanks for your answers.
Yeah, I just want to add maybe a detail. What we are doing is when writing the clues, we are writing more clues than needed to ideally solve the puzzle. Meaning that maybe you will have completely understood how it works when you have only found maybe 70% of the clues about one mystery. Meaning that you arrive at your 7th clue out of 10 about this particular mystery, maybe you get it and you can go through the wallpaper, and if you don't, then you will encounter clues that really hold you a bit more by the end, more straightforward clues. I don't know if I made myself clear.
Yeah, it was clear, thanks.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you. Marion, if you want to go next.
Yep. So I think you've maybe partially answered my question regarding the knowledge key system. I was wondering if you need all the clues or a certain number of clues in order for the mechanic to unlock. For instance, so in your example, the wallpaper you can walk backwards through. Is this available from the start, even if you have not found any clue? And aren't you afraid that basically players will find some mysteries by accident? Like, for instance, they're moving through the room and they walk backward through a wall and they're like, why did I go through this wall? And get kind of confused. Aren't you afraid this is going to happen?
Thank you for your question. So yes, you can actually solve a mystery right from the beginning without having even found one single clue. You can start a fresh file and just go through the mention if you know how everything works. So of course it raises the second question you asked, and we anticipated this by hiding behind every mystery door a clue that explains, that clarifies how you did it. It's not. It doesn't tell you. It doesn't. Sorry, I'm getting confused here. It doesn't tell you step by step exactly, but it gives you clues about how you did it. Obvious clues of them all. Sorry, I don't know what more to say. I don't know if Alexandre wants to clarify my job.
Okay, that was pretty clear.
Okay.
So, no more questions or feedbacks? Yeah, go ahead.
Then just maybe, I understand that you have Outer Wilds as a main reference, and that the player starts to have keys for knowledge for the game. I'm just wondering how you will do that for the last presentation, how you will transfer that feeling of getting that knowledge in a presentation, because it's basically the main if I'm not wrong, the main idea of your game is to showcase that you are able to guide the player to a specific kind of epiphany. It's something that is very personal, and I would like to know how you will handle that in the final presentation. It could be very interesting to have some elements about that.
So we're going to showcase the game maybe through a live-like video showcasing players, two players playing the game, one player that knows the game and one player that doesn't know the game, and so that we can really get this experience of finding about the mystery we've been talking about since the first presentation, the wallpaper mystery, and then we'll get this mystery, we'll understand how to get mystery in the game, what the game is about, but then the other mystery, we will not talk too much about them because we also want people to be able to play the game and find them by themselves. So yeah, it's a thin line, but the experience, the core of the game is to learn about the character, learn about the supernatural elements of the mansion, get it, and move forward into the estates. So we can, I think the live-like video format will really allow us to convey that. We think it's the best way to introduce people to the game and the game concept.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. I think, Marion, you have another question or comment?
No, I don't.
No? Okay, I do have a problem on my computer, so my network is not working well, so I'm sorry, I must be delayed. Other comments or questions? If no, then let's congratulate the team once again. Thank you for the presentation and the exchange. Thanks to all the team of this afternoon for the presentation and the Q&A sessions. Thanks to all the teams for the day. Thanks to all the jury for these your questions, suggestions, remarks, and it's very valuable for everybody to have this type of exchange at the diverse moments of the development of their project. I don't know, Marion, if you want to give a final word of what you thought of this day. So after 2 months of start of the games.
So my feeling for the day, honestly, I'm pretty amazed. It's the first time that I'm in a jury for this kind of project, and I did not know really what to expect, how fast you would be progressing, and how far along you would be. And honestly, I'm